Our first reading on what is a sponsor, why is sponsorship so important, and benefits of having a sponsor or being a sponsor is Nancy G. Would you please unmute and identify yourself?
Good morning, everyone. I'm Nancy, and I am a grateful, recovering sex and love addict, love avoidant. Okay, this document is designed to benefit the prospective sponsee looking for a sponsor, the experienced member considering sponsoring, and anyone reevaluating their current sponsorship relationships. What is a sponsor? A sponsor is a person who gives us support and guidance while working through the 12 steps of SLAA. Our sponsor is a fellow addict who has experience dealing with obstacles that arise when recovering from this addiction. A sponsor is not a therapist, nor are they our higher power. They meet us on a foundation of common moral ground. Sponsors are not without shortcomings. They are human too, with struggles and uncertainty, just as anyone else in the fellowship. Indeed, seeing the imperfections in our sponsor helps relieve us of our own compulsive need for perfection. While the steps are necessary tools, there may be topics that require outside help, such as with mental health professional or even legal aid. Thus, a sponsor is not meant to be the only solution to someone's recovery, but a valuable component. Why is sponsorship so important? Sponsorship is critical to achieve and sustain recovery in SLAA. The primary role of a sponsor is to help us work the steps. A sponsor may also help us establish bottom and top line behaviors. They can help us recognize red flags, such as watching provocative movies or spending idle time on the computer. Sponsors might suggest tools to avoid a possible relapse. For example, they can help us refrain from answering calls or responding to texts from inappropriate or unhealthy contacts. With the help of a sponsor and our higher power, we learn how to live a sober life in recovery. Benefits of having a sponsor or being a sponsor. Addiction to sex and love is characterized by an inability to develop true intimacy with others. Our experience has shown that the very act of taking on one or more sponsees is an empowering way to overcome fear of commitment and responsibility. For some, the relationship with the sponsor is our first healthy connection and helps us gain confidence by learning how to be vulnerable and honest with ourselves, with others. The ability to connect with others is a true gift and blessing of SLAA and the sponsor-sponsee relationship. Being listened to without judgment and learning to listen to others without judgment is one of the most important factors in successful relationships. Being a sponsee and later a sponsor teaches us to be good listeners, to be available, and to be accountable. We learn to value the sponsor-sponsee relationship as a way to stay spiritually fit. We learn to develop boundaries for ourselves, respect for others, and cultivate emotional intimacy. From the sponsor's perspective, when others look to us for guidance, we discover in ourselves a capacity for humility as we allow the words of our higher power to flow through us. Our own determination to work the SLAA program often grows stronger as we see the effects of sex and love addiction in the lives of others. We acknowledge our own progress and healing and become willing to give back to the program some of the benefits we have gained.
Thank you, Nancy, for your service. I appreciate you.
My
We will
pleasure.
now open the floor for 15 minutes to anyone who would like to share on these topics. Timekeeper, can you please allow up to 3 minutes per share and give a 1-minute warning? I will call on speakers in the order in which hands are raised. So if you would like to share, you can just raise your hand using the reactions button in the Zoom. John D.
John D., sex love fantasy addict. I know I just started being a sponsor to someone, and beforehand I had my therapist called imposter syndrome, where I kept going over in my head, who do you think you are to be a sponsor? But it was just in my head, because when I started talking to him, I saw all the the suffering and everything I had when I first came in the room. And then I remembered what was taught to me, how it wasn't immediate, and I had to work with people and actually ask for help and accept the help. And it became easier and easier to just talk to them, just not really being a therapist, but just saying how this has helped me, this fellowship, and everyone in here to ask for help. And it became more of a communication. And the more I helped him, the more it helped me. So I just want to say thank you. And sponsorship has helped revitalize my work in this recovery program. So thank you.
Thank you, John. Appreciate your share. Next, Janine B.
Hello, I'm Janine. I'm going to try with the video, but sometimes my sound on my old laptop doesn't work that great when my video's up. Love, validation, and codependent addict. Thank you very much for this, for doing this. I'm coming to meetings about 3 months since the middle of December, and I had been in another recovery program since 2009. In 2016, I had slipped because I didn't have emotional sobriety, though I wasn't really sure what that was. And in having that problem again, or constantly in my life, I Googled emotional sobriety and I found SLAW. And in the other program, there were not as many women, but I was always able to find a sponsor, even if the fit wasn't great. And then, I did the steps. So here in SLAW, even though I'm on a lot of WhatsApp groups and found there's hundreds and hundreds of women, there's a lot of outreach available. I found it more difficult to find a sponsor. I am working the steps in a group, but I really want that one-on-one connection. I go to a meeting almost every night, and I have thrown it out there. I've also been, asked certain people, and it's not rejection, but, that person, wasn't ready yet or whatever. And so then I kind of back off it. But I really feel I need to do the steps with a sponsor one-on-one, because I'm not that good on my, and to have someone to check in with. I'm like, at least a text. I'm okay. I'm not okay. And I'm hoping that I learn more about sponsorship here, and also to get more involved on that larger level, maybe in the program. And thank you. And just thank you, everybody, for your service. I'm probably not going to be able to stay on for the whole meeting.
1 minute.
Appointment. Thank you. Thank you for that, Stephanie. I do have another commitment later, but as much as I can, I want to be here because I'm already getting a lot of information. And I don't know, it's opening things up for me in the program. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Janine. Looks like I'm up next. Clark, Sex, Love, Fantasy Addict. I think it's okay for hosts of the workshop to share. Yeah, I just thought of two benefits from being a sponsor. One more general, one more specific that I felt compelled to share. Yeah, both my sponsor and some of my sponsees are people who in my normal life I would never have anything to do with. And I'm so thankful for obviously my sponsor and my sponsee's presence in my life, just for exposure to different ways of life, different ways of living, different upbringings, and exposure to different worlds. I mean, I guess it's helped me realize how narrow in certain ways my worldview is and my framework for living. And I'm so incredibly grateful for that. The second, more specific, is, and I probably tell this story too much, but one of my sponsees lost his marriage and his family because of his infidelity. And after about a year or so of working together, I remember the first time when he called me and shared that his daughter had called him and to have lunch, and it was the first time they had spoken in like well over a year, and just like sharing that joy with him and crying on the phone with him was like, just what a joy that I was able to take part of that part of his life, and in some small way contribute to that huge, I don't know, accomplishment. Just what a joy and what a privilege. And that comes from being a sponsor. So thanks for letting me share. And if there's anyone else who would like to share, I think we still have plenty of time, so please raise your hands. Nancy.
Hi, everybody. I'm Nancy, sex and love addict, love avoidant, and good to see everybody. I see some familiar faces, and I am aware that of the relationships I've formed in SLAA, which are really a part of what this is about. Not all sponsor-sponsee relationships, but just working on committees and all. I have built wonderful relationships in SLAA. And have some history with the sponsorship committee, and I'm so happy to read this and just see what has come forward, and really grateful to the writing group for what you've captured. And I think it's beautifully done. For me, it addresses, like, I think all addictions are an intimacy disorder. And I think it's so well stated in here, that our real challenges are being intimate with ourselves and others. And, that the sponsor-sponsee relationship, it could be the very first, sober relationship in many of our lives, a place to practice and apply our learnings and our tools. So, and I'm very happy to see in there the boundaries that, that keep it to the steps. And that's been an important learning for me, because I am a therapist, and my first ventures into sponsoring, boy, it was really slippery slopes for me. And then through my sponsor, I learned I just keep it strictly to the steps, and, refer out to mental health professionals for anything that got beyond that. So it's got all of that in there. And I would also just like to put a pitch in for working the steps with any of our new workbooks. I have 3 new sponsees, and they're working the different workbooks, the little blue pamphlet one called the
1 minute.
Okay. And then I can't remember the name of it, the big one with the clock on it. And they're new to program, and they just really love the depth that the workbooks have, and how the questions just take them into areas of their life that they've not addressed before. So good to be here with you.
Thank you, Nancy. Steve, you're up.
Thank you, Clark, and thank you for your service, Steve, sex and love addict. I wasn't really planning on sharing, but when I heard the reading, and it was really well read, it reminded me, what is a sponsor and what is not a sponsor. I had a sponsor a while back, and it was basically a my way or the highway, and I got really frustrated by it because, and I would push back on things like, why are you saying this has to be a bottom line? Or why are you saying that I have to do this? And, I would reach out to other people, and I would let them know that. And he says, oh, do you need multiple sponsors? Am I not good enough? And so why do I offer this at this point? Because what I really needed to recognize is boundaries and my program. And it took me a while, because I had a lot of respect. This guy's got some really good sobriety. He's been in the program for quite some time, but it no longer was really meeting my needs. And we're going to get into it a little bit later in terms of when is it time to reevaluate sponsor relationships. But it really goes back to basics for me in terms of, what is a sponsor? And a sponsor is really somebody who can, guide me through the steps, work me through the steps. And later on, I guess, once we've established that relationship and done that, it then becomes more of a mentor type of a relationship for me, so that, if I'm getting antsy in some way, shape, or form, it talked also about, sponsorship is maybe our first healthy intimate relationship that we've really honestly had with another person. And there's a lot of truth to that. And it also, when I recognize the aspects, the characteristics of that relationship and it being built on honesty and truth and vulnerability and transparency, is like, oh, I guess I can really do that in other areas of my life. So
1 minute.
I'm now remarried, and I get to practice that. And it isn't always easy, but, you know, a sponsorship, being both a sponsee and also being a sponsor, has helped me in that way as well. And just to close here, being a sponsor, it's like being a teacher. You know, oftentimes being a teacher, you learn things from the students, and being a sponsor, sometimes I learn things from the sponsee. So it's not a give and take. It's really a, you know, give and take and take. So there's a lot of benefits there that maybe you can't always write down and put your finger on, but value relationship. And thanks for putting this on. Thank you.
Thanks, Steve. Next, Peggy H.
Thank you. I'm new to the program, Sex and Love Addict, and I have a question about sponsorship, and if it'll be addressed later on. I'm requesting that it be addressed. And so my question is, as I'm looking for a sponsor, I haven't yet had anybody make it clear to me what sobriety is in this program. It seems like a little more vague than maybe AA or something like that. And so I'm wondering if sponsors, I assume that they should be have sobriety, whatever that means. And for example, yesterday I have a person that's been calling me, and she's been in an entangled relationship that's not healthy and finally getting out and going through withdrawal and everything. But she offered to be my sponsor yesterday. And I didn't feel drawn to that because of her own personal situation. So I'm wondering that as part of when you're looking for a sponsor, what I don't know if my question is clear, but is there something that to be a sponsor, you should have a certain level of sobriety or something, or what, as a person looking for a sponsor, should I consider in that way? Thank you.
Thanks, Peggy. I think we will address some of that in some of our sections. Also, when some of the speaker shares later on, you'll also have the opportunity to ask questions directly to them. And if not, we'll be a resource for you after the conference service sponsorship committee. Would be happy to take your questions as well. I think that's about 15 minutes. So we will move on to the next section.